Ole Miss gets another transfer portal commit in Teja Young, and also something weird could be developing. We'll talk about that right after this.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for making us the Ole Miss morning show of choice for you. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. When you enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Let's get straight to it. Austin Simmons. Now, that's a name that you might have heard, you might have not have heard, but it is a 2025 recruit that played last season at Pahokee, Florida. He has since transferred to, Moorhaven Junior Senior High in Moorhaven, Florida, maybe. Extremely high NIL value. This is an electric type player. We wouldn't be talking to you about a 2025 type player if he wasn't a real big player. Now, just to put that in perspective, we're going to start going through this. A couple of weeks ago, Austin Simmons broke down his commitment to Florida Gators commitment. I guess that was about a month ago that he committed to the Gators. And then a couple of weeks back, he mentioned that he was going to visit Ole Miss. So, after the Ole Miss visit, this came out. He was giving Ole Miss a long look. This is from this morning from the Ole Miss Spirit, the On3 affiliate, where everything's going on. And the information I'm about to say is not just based off of everything they've heard, because my phone has been blowing up as well about this kid. But before we get into that, I do want to let you know what is going on and who he is. Now, if you look at this, he is a 6 foot 180 pound, 17-year-old class of 2025. He's above his age, okay? We're going to talk about all of that in just a second. His composite rating is as the 72nd player in the country. On3 by itself rated him as 136, ESPN 77, 24/7 58, Rivals 42. This is a top-level prospect that potentially Ole Miss has a real shot at. And nothing I'm about to say is in any way derogatory towards Damon Williams. Damon Williams has a chance to be electric. He has a chance to be special. Whatever I say next has nothing to do with him, okay? And this is important to know when dealing with a player like Austin Simmons. He has already graduated or had enough credits to graduate from high school. He has enough credits to where he could be like an associate's degree in college already. I think he's got 52 or something like that college credits available to him. And honestly, he's like a modern day Doogie Howser of somebody that's higher than his level. So he's committed to Florida. He visited Ole Miss. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing with what happened after he visited Ole Miss, but let's just say that Ole Miss made him an offer, whatever it is, of what he can do, and he went back to Florida to it, and maybe or maybe not, it was not met. Now, the rumor is right now that Florida is trying to do whatever they can to salvage the relationship, but I received a phone call, I guess 2 days ago, saying, hey, you should expect a commitment from this guy. This commit that was a Florida guy. And this is a Florida source that was telling me this. You should expect a commitment because whatever it is, Billy Napier's not going to play the game that is being played. And it sounds real similar to what Ole Miss did with Keon Coleman. But when you look at the huddle video, I encourage everybody to look at the huddle video of Austin Simmons from Pahokee last year. And you see a strong arm, smooth quarterback, left-handed, southpaw, that does well. Let's say he's very advanced for his age. Now, granted, his age is 17 and a half, but you know what I mean. He slings the ball around the yard. He's extremely accurate, extremely strong arm. He's a top 100 recruit for a reason. And Ole Miss getting into the ball game with him, and if Ole Miss can get his commitment, that is only the start of what would happen with him. There's no guarantee that he would beat out Walker Howard. There's no guarantee that he would beat out Damon Williams. He would compete with them and push them like all heck. But there's no guarantee that he would win the job. But he is the type quarterback that could come in and win the job, honestly, as a true freshman. He has those type of tools. And Ole Miss does not run a overly complex offense as far as the number of plays. There are complexities that are involved with RPOs and the extra choices that have to be made. But as far as the number of plays, it's not overly that many as far as what's put into the system. So there's a chance he could come in and win the job as a true freshman whenever he would be going into his recruitment year. But I'm not saying he would even beat out Damon Williams. I'm not saying he would beat out Walker Howard. But this is a really good quarterback, and the fact that Ole Miss is in the game with him, it kind of lends credence to what I talked about yesterday about the war chest. That became the interesting thing. Ole Miss made all that money when Lane Kiffin did his Auburn thing. Where is that money being allocated? And it looks like it is being allocated with 2024 high schools and maybe going into trying to get Austin Simmons to reclassify into the 2024 or 2023 even class. This is interesting. This is something that people should keep an eye on. This has become a story because he has the grades to be able to reclassify, come for the second summer session, and go through fall practice. I expect him to redshirt, honestly, but he has the tools to do it. He has the grades to do it, and it will be interesting to see what goes on. And now, would you do something like this in this age of transferring when everybody is going to another school? Is this just a player that you're bringing into your program that could go off to another one? It will be quite interesting, but Austin Simmons has all the tools in the world, and this is honestly something that we should be paying attention to. Just seriously. Anyway, today's show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs has these stretch khaki shorts. They look like normal shorts, but they are unbelievably comfortable. They come with a liner. And most everybody knows what I went through in 2019. And walking as much as I do, I have to walk morning, afternoon, and night. And if I don't, I get a little bit wobbly because of I think I had like a 19-hour brain surgery. And because of that, I lost the right side, the balance that comes on the right side of your body. The whole ear, the whole 9 yards got messed up. So I have to constantly train my brain to use the other side. And if anybody ever had to walk like that and had to do it, everybody knows that walking in shorts is a self-teaching tool. If you have shorts that do not fit what you want, you will immediately be done with that walk and know exactly what I'm talking about. If you want any questions, go walk a mile on swim trunks. But if you walk a mile in comfortable, stretchy shorts with a liner and everything is positioned, it becomes almost heavenly for what they can do. So I walk in those, and I would not want to walk in any other shorts. It's the simply most comfortable shorts that I've ever worn. If you have any questions about it, go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. You can enter promo code LockedOnCollege. That's all one word, for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take these Bird Dogs off, we promise you. And if you get them, you will be in the comments telling me how right I am. Seriously. It just honestly is what it is. Whenever you look at how comfortable these shorts are, they'll simply be the most comfortable shorts you ever put on. So that's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. Enter promo code LockedOnCollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. Tom Vanderford's going to come by. He's going to do his thing. We're going to talk Ole Miss sports, and we're going to have a good time. Because this channel, at its core, is about talking about Ole Miss sports. It's about perspectives. It's about commentary. Those type things are what's important. We do not want to be like every other podcast that's out there, where you're essentially reading the phone book of yesterday's current events. We're interested in talking about what happened, what can happen, and what will happen. That is what we're talking about. Anyway, Teja Young, and I could be mispronouncing that first name, but I heard it pronounced TJ on a Florida Atlantic video. So I'm going to go with Teja Young. And he's going to transfer to Ole Miss. He may already be there, honestly. And this is a good pickup, another defensive player. We talked about it was winding down yesterday. Apparently there was still one more, or maybe another one could pop as well, because they are unbelievably secretive of who they're recruiting and how they're kind of in the game with. And TJ is a really good player. Here's his article from the Grove Report. They're at a veteran DB, according to the transfer portal from AFAU's Teja Young. He was a All-Conference USA player. Man, Ole Miss is just signing the All-Conference USA team this year. This is absolutely crazy. But the Portal King is absolutely doing work. Lane Kiffin does work. And if you look at his stats and when he came in, it says 2018 Florida Atlantic, which means Lane Kiffin recruited him to Florida Atlantic. That's kind of important to realize. He knows Charlie Wise. He knows Kevin Smith. He knows Lane Kiffin, and that was the familiarity, and so he wanted to come in to do it. I've heard rumors of an injury. I do not know about that. I just know that he was an All-Conference USA player. He has 4 pick sixes in the last 2 years. Now, if you want to look at what's going on with TJ, these are his snaps by position. You can see that he has played slot corner for the majority of his snaps. So you want to look at a Husky. We've been talking about Ladarius Tennyson. We've been talking about Ashim Young. Is one of those pump the brakes type situation where Ole Miss keeps bringing in slot corners as opposed to safety linebacker hybrids. So they're going to play, if you look at this, honestly, with 5 defensive backs and 3 cornerbacks. They've recruited Deshaun Gaddy. The kid from Liberty, you see them adding players. Jaden Kennedy from Tulane. You can see them adding all up to where they have coverage type, corner type players, which tells me one thing. There's going to be a ton of man defense as opposed to the zone defense that many of these kids were recruited for. So they want options. As they're going to go through fall, they want options of ways that they can lock down and cover the Ole Miss offense in fall camp. Because if you can handle this offense, you are going to be fine in the SEC with the top running back in college football in the backfield and receivers all over the place. All conference, all American level receivers all over the field. And if you can do well against them, you will do well on Saturday against Mercer, against Tulane, heck, against Alabama. This will provide a competitive advantage for this defense and allow them to grow up really, really quick. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is the defensive grades. As a true freshman in 2018 with Lane Kiffin, he had a 56. He didn't do that particularly well. 2019, a little bit better. His first 2 years, it looks like, was with Lane Kiffin. 2020, the first year without Lane, 59. 2021, 87. This is important. You can see the growth and development. And that 2018 was probably a redshirt year, playing less than 4 games. You get the COVID year back in 2020. So that's the reason he would be eligible in 2023. Really big time player, slot corner type player. He's 5'11", 192. His draft year looks like 2024. I'm excited about this one. Anytime an Ole Miss player comes in, I'm excited about him. But I'm excited to see exactly how the back 5 of that defense is going to look moving forward, because it does have a chance to be pretty special. But like I said, I could be mispronouncing his name. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but Teja Young from Florida Atlantic transfers into Ole Miss. We're getting ready. We're like 4 or 5 weeks away from SEC Media Days, and it's going to really get going. We asked people in the comment section to let us know what we shouldn't do. They do not want to rewatch. They do want us to look forward as much as possible. We're saving W's and L's until July. Okay, right before Media Days, we are going to do the W's and L's, and we're going to do a little bit of a breakdown of each team on Ole Miss's schedule now that the rosters are starting to get finalized. We'll see exactly what happens. Will Austin Simmons make it to Ole Miss's campus in 2023? He could have been a junior in high school, but he's on Ole Miss's campus because the kid has grades. I think he has like a 5.4 GPA, which, when I went to school, you could only get to a 4, but he's apparently in 5. And he's already got his credits available to graduate high school and honestly get his associate's degree at this point. So talk about somebody that has done high school correctly. That is what Austin Simmons has done. Teja Young fills a desperate need that Ole Miss has had. They're trying to mix and match to put the best possible unit on the field. There's corners all over the place. There's honestly, if you want to look at actual corners, now they might play safety, but corners, if we just take them as their word and what they played last year, Ole Miss has a 3 deep in the cornerback room now that have played at the Division I level recently. It's unbelievably impressive. Anyway, when we come back, Mike Huseman, he's going to give a little bit of a recap on the Ole Miss transfer portal season. The Portal King, he is all about talking about that. Is Ole Miss done? What is going on? What transfers are surprising? What transfers are important? Those type deal. We'll talk about Mike in just a second. Anyway, stick around. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, comment, upvote, join our subtext community. The link is in the description. Hi, I'm Stephen Willis. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Here with Mike Huseman. We're talking transfer portal today. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well. Glad to be here as usual.
Yeah, the transfer portal for this cycle is winding down. There still could be a couple other players that pop. I guess Teja Young just popped out of nowhere when I wasn't really expecting that. So there's probably still could be another that could pop. But who are the transfer portal standouts, both of the early session and the late session for Ole Miss this year?
So for me, a big one that I like a lot was John Saunders. Right from when he left Miami, Ohio, I thought he would be a good get. And I think based on his body frame, he fits very well into that nickel position in a 4-2-5. So I very high on him. And then a guy who I think should help on the inside is going to be Josh Harris. And then Stephon Wynn was an interesting one. I don't know that he got necessarily the hype that people thought he may have, or that he deserves, I should say. But D lineman coming from Nebraska could be a player. And Zamari Walton, I think another defensive back. I think that's the position they probably help themselves the most at. It was interesting. I didn't notice this until a couple days ago, but looking at their depth chart, 10 out of their 11 starters on D will have transferred there at one point. And I believe, I think Cedric Johnson is the only one who, is penned in to start right now that didn't transfer there. And I think that's a big credit to Lane for who he's brought in there.
Yeah, and people don't really necessarily understand, but the reason Ole Miss is so heavily on the defensive back isn't because Igbenogson and Tysheem Johnson transferred out. It's because it's going in a system change, and they were predominantly a zone team last year. With Pete Golding, they're going to be man, so they need people that can cover man coverage defensive back. So it's good. They're going to mix and match and find the right combination, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is a big reason why I was really high on Saunders for them because he's going to be able to press those guys, play at the line, and then either follow them downfield or in that nickel, even in a zone system, or sorry, even in a man system, that nickel guy takes that, curl flat a lot. So he's a very good fit for that system. I'll say the last guy I was really high on for Ole Miss was Caden Prieskorn, coming from Memphis, good tight end. I think they'll be able to do a lot with him, especially a lot of people don't realize how, well, your fans are going to, but fans of other schools don't realize how run heavy they became as a team last year. Being able to use 12 personnel this year, like you had mentioned this within the last couple days on the show. I expect them to do it a lot. It's going to be great for Judkins and their ability to run the ball, to be able to use Trigg and Prieskorn on the field at the same time, makes them very dangerous, I think.
Yeah, Prieskorn allows them to be more positionally versatile than they were even a year ago, which could make this offense a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more explosive than even it has been.
Yeah. And in the throw game, too, especially if they're looking to play action and do, that shorter intermediate throws. A guy that got lost in the wash last year was Ulysses Bentley, who will still have value especially as a third down back. I thought we would see more of him last year. We really didn't, but he was stuck behind the depth chart behind two studs. He's a guy I expect to see a lot of targets this year. Carry wise, I don't know what to expect there. You would know more than I would on that front. But in the passing game, I think he could be very helpful.
Yeah, he actually was in the spring game with a touchdown pass that he caught from the quarterbacks. Let's touch on the quarterbacks for a second. Now, they wouldn't have gone and gotten Spencer Sanders unless they wanted to push Jackson Dart. So this is a legit competition, and it will be hopefully until the end of August and not beyond that. And then Walker Howard, I think he might be the best and most talented out of all of them, but he just needs experience, and he probably won't have that and be ready to go until next year to begin with. What do you think of the quarterback situation at Ole Miss?
So I'm more bullish on this one than most people are. And in the constant tweeting I'm doing, putting my takes out there, every now and again, a certain fan base attacks you for things. The Ole Miss fans attacked me for this one. I like Sanders a lot, and I'll explain why. I'll also explain where I was wrong too, because I absolutely will admit that. Right when Spencer Sanders announced he was going there, my initial thought was he will be the starter, and I'm basing that off of the historical precedents we've seen in the portal era the last few years. How many times have we seen a multi-year P5 starter transfer somewhere to be a backup? It doesn't happen. You transfer to be a starter. Now, we knew his shoulder was dinged up. I don't think we knew it was as bad as it turned out to be, but I was very bullish. And I remember my initial tweet, like it was yesterday, was Sanders will start, Jackson Dart come fall, will Portland be somewhere else? I will say I was wrong about that. I don't think that happens anymore. And many of the Ole Miss fans jumped on me for that, saying Dart's the guy, he's going to start. I'm still not sure about that, but I absolutely was wrong and rushed to judgment in saying that he'll just leave. That's not going to happen. They'll battle it out. I think you also brought up a good point with Walker Howard. He's the future. He's not the present, but he has all the tools you look for in a P5 quarterback and a guy that could eventually be playing on Sundays. He looks the part. He can make the throws. We just need to see that experience, because those judgment and decision-making are things you can't replicate anywhere else other than in a game. So that's what we got to see.
So who are some players that we aren't thinking about whenever we do the transfer portal thing and look back? Who are some names that we should just remember and jar our memory before fall camp?
one guy that it's nobody ever thinks of guards, but a guy that I think is worth looking at is Quincy McGee. He had been at UAB, then was at, I believe it was Mississippi Gulf Coast, but it was one of the JUCOs this last year. I think there's a good chance we see him start on the interior this year. And I can't believe to this point I haven't mentioned Trey Harris. Everybody knows him, but he's going to play a lot. He's going to be a guy that you will certainly notice. And one of the other guys, I don't know that this guy will start, but Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste could be one of those LBs that sees the field. He did a lot of good things when he was at UCF, and only playing two linebackers, snaps are going to be limited there. They do have a few guys that are, ready to play SEC ball. I think he will be one of them. I don't think he would have transferred there if they didn't see that in, but he's a thick, stout guy that should be good at stopping the inside run when he's on the field. I don't know. He may be a situational guy. Probably will be in on more rundowns than pass downs, but I think he's a guy to look for.
All right. And before we get out of here, we have to talk about the two main signees of the spring transfer portal season, and Isaac Ukwu and Zachary Franklin. Talk a little bit about those guys.
Ukwu was a guy, even before he said he was going to Ole Miss, right when he hit the portal, I was like, this is a big get for somebody. He's an edge guy who's very good at getting to the passer. He will be able to disrupt against anybody, and we'll see him make big plays. The one thing he needs to get better at is consistency. There were some games he just disappeared. Even, at the G5 level, you look at his game logs, he had multiple games, 0 tackles, 0 sacks. That'll need to get better, but the upside and that potential ceiling to wreak havoc in the backfield is certainly there. And Franklin, if we combine the first portal season and the spring one, there aren't many receivers that are better than him. He holds basically all the UTSA records. He had 94 catches this year for over 1,500 yards. I think 14 touchdowns, but I could be wrong on that number. But the first two I know are accurate. And I think it speaks a lot to Ole Miss that he was willing to leave UTSA, because this is going to be their season. They could win Conference USA this year. They return Frank Harris, who, like Franklin, holds all their school records. Kavorian Barnes is a good back. They return a lot of guys, and I don't think he would have left for just anywhere. So the fact that he decided to leave and pick Ole Miss, very good.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first and listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. Tom Vanderford will be talking Ole Miss sports of the week, probably some Austin Simmons and this weird situation we talked about earlier today. Anyway, thank you so much, Mike, for stopping by. We got to do this again, bud.
Absolutely. Glad to be here as usual.
All right.